you after dinner.
Women's voices, one story at a time. Welcome to the She Said Project podcast. Hey, check. Is this thing on? All right. Well, welcome everybody to a very special episode of the She Said Project podcast. I am your host, Jenette Jurczyk, National Director of the She Said Project.
Hi, I'm Kerry Rossow, the co-founder of this shindig.
And one of the amazing women who brought That's What She Said to life. What was it, 12, 13 years ago?
That makes me feel old. Okay, so when we started this, we were in our 40s and we wore heels and we stayed up late. And now we're in our 50s and I wear a tunic and sensible shoes and plan to be home and in bed by 10.
Even with an after party. So the brainchild that you and your friends Jill Pierce and Casey Wakefield created has grown into a powerful movement more than a decade strong.
You guys, we really thought it was just going to be a one-night thing.
That's what she said. Ba-dum-bum.
Well, we're so grateful that you showed up when you did and you were able to sort of take all of our ideas and wave a magic wand and you're making it all happen.
Well, Kerry, getting to direct the live shows and grow this organization has been the biggest gift. And the best part of it all, truly, is being able to look my parents directly in the eye and tell them, yes, in fact, I do use my college degree in theater every single day.
Thanks, Mom and Dad. Well, for me, the best part is seeing the women and the cast get to know each other and come together to find their stories. We've always said that the show should be like a window and a mirror, that you should be able to see through the window and to someone else's experience that you never considered before. And then it should also be a reflection to you, that you see people up here that tell their story and you go, oh my gosh, me too.
And we have found that we can create the same magical energy in theaters across the Midwest. So did you realize that in 2024, there were That's What She Said performances in 10 different communities? Mm-hmm. We have welcomed over 330 women to be She Said speakers on the stage. And with 14 shows already planned for 2025, that number will be close to 500 before the end of this year.
Woo! Well, that's what I love about the podcast, because we can catch up with the women who have been in shows all over the country. And also I love the podcast because I can wear my pajamas.
Because nobody sees you, right? I feel like with everything we have going on, the shows, our That's What Teens Say empowerment program, that collection of stories that we published a couple years ago, the podcast is like the glue that brings it all together. We have chatted with women from every single city where we had a That's What She Said show. And 2024 was full of some pretty serious milestones. I mean, it was huge.
That's what she said.
Thank you for picking that up. Too slow, Rossow.
It just became an interactive show.
Oh, where are we now?
Way to go, Sholem. Way to go.
It's choking me. I gotta get this off.
Well, I think that there was another milestone you wanted to share.
Well, in December, we released our 100th episode of the She Said Project podcast. Thank you. Which is why tonight, for our 10th Champaign-Urbana show, we thought we would open with a little sneak peek into what the podcast is like.
Yep, that's why every show partners with a nonprofit, because a portion of all of your ticket sales will go to that nonprofit.
Yeah, it's all about giving back to the community. And we had kind of a banner year in 2024 because we were able to say that as of December 31st, our That's What She Said shows to date have generated over $100,000 in charitable gift donations to the communities where we have shows.
Definitely something to celebrate.
It is definitely something worth celebrating. You know what's really worth celebrating? Usually on the podcast, we just have one guest and get to chat with one awesome lady. But tonight we're about to welcome 8 amazing women out here to join us.
So I'm so excited. You guys are gonna love these women. You're gonna love their stories. So without further ado, Jenette.
Are you ready? Let's welcome to the stage your 2025 That's What She Said speakers.
When I was 5 years old, I learned something that would stick with me for the rest of my life. It wasn't a lesson I expected, but it hit me hard. I was different. It happened in kindergarten on Ethan Carter's birthday. He handed out cupcakes to each classmate, and when he reached me, he stopped, looked straight at me, and said, "You can't have one, you're brown." It's a moment I can still feel vividly. The sting of rejection and the feeling of being marked as different. That moment was my first real brush with the idea of difference. It's the first time I understood that my identity and the color of my skin was something that could be used to exclude me. It was the first time I asked myself, who am I in this world? What I didn't realize then was that this question would follow me, shape-shifting through different seasons of my life, always whispering, where do you belong? Born and raised in Livingston, New Jersey, my sister and I were the first generation in our family born in this country, and often felt like we were navigating a world where we didn't quite fit in. We were torn between 2 cultures, the one that my parents brought when they came here from India, and the one I saw around me in New Jersey. I often found myself wondering, am I Indian enough? Am I American enough? It was like straddling 2 worlds, never really anchored to either one. As I grappled with this idea, I began to notice how my mother navigated her own balance between 2 worlds. Her life was defined by love and sacrifice. She had my sister and me by the time she was 20, and by the time I was old enough to understand, I could see how much of her life was shaped by our needs. She gave everything she had to us, her time, her energy, her dreams. In doing so, I began to wonder, were there parts of herself that she set aside for us? Is that what it means to be a mother? My mom encouraged us to dream beyond the confines of our everyday lives. She nurtured our sense of adventure, which led to unforgettable experiences like a vacation to Jamaica when we were 12 years old. During that trip, we met a family from Champaign, Illinois, who had a son, Will, who happened to be my age. Will and I became fast friends, sharing an immediate and natural connection. Over that short week in Jamaica, we played Marco Polo, went to the teen disco, and watched Something About Mary at the teen movie night. We were probably too young for that. But at the end of the week, I had to say goodbye. It felt impossible. We exchanged AOL screen names, and I remember getting home and slipping into the daily routine of middle school. Everything seemed dull after Jamaica. But Will and I stayed connected, chatting online, talking late into the night on my mom's borrowed cell phone. Does anyone remember free minutes after 9 p.m.? And even though we were separated by distance, that little thread of connection felt like a lifeline. It was the first time I realized that belonging isn't always tied to a place. Sometimes it's a person. Over time, the distance became a challenge, and yet we held on. Will wasn't just a boy from one vacation anymore. He became someone I could lean on, someone who understood what it was like to not quite fit in. Our friendship evolved from late night chats that would stretch across weekends and states, and at every stage, I found myself asking, is this what love looks like? Many years, plane rides, and ups and downs later, I moved to Illinois to be with Will in 2014. Our friendship had blossomed into love and ultimately marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter. But with that move, I was giving up a lot, leaving behind the world and the culture I knew, the family I'd grown up with, and stepping into something very foreign. In the quiet moments of my new life in Illinois, I would ask myself, am I still that same girl who left New Jersey, or am I someone new now? Loving Will felt like the first time I had truly lost myself. Not in a bad way, though. Once I moved, I found myself letting go of pieces of my old identity. No longer the loud girl from New Jersey, but the more chill culture of the Midwest. Mastering the art of pumping my own gas, complimenting people on their lawns, and getting way too excited about a good casserole. Just when I thought I had the hang of married life and the Midwest, it seemed like a good time to procreate. That's the next thing you're supposed to do, right? The journey to becoming a mom was not an easy one for me. I faced 3 miscarriages, and each one was heart-wrenching. After every loss, I found myself trying to figure out what it meant to be hopeful and to grieve at the same time. When I finally gave birth to my son, Aro, at 3:42 a.m. on March 30th, 2020, in the height of COVID, his arrival was anything but calm. Aro had been born, but I hadn't heard him cry. While the NICU team urgently whisked him away, my panic started to set in. My eyes locked on Will's, and his dazed and terrified expression only deepened my fear, and without a second thought, I said, go be with him. The minutes stretched into hours. I was alone, unable to move, with no answers. In that dark, silent hospital room, I felt more alone than I ever had, desperate to be with Aro, yet powerless to do so. After everything, this was the moment I had waited for, but it was the loneliest. I remember thinking, am I even a mother yet? But it was the first weeks of COVID. Because it was the first weeks of COVID, I couldn't hold Aro right away. It was a bizarre, strange, and terrifying 3 days in the NICU until we were able to be together as a family. But even in those fearful moments, I held on to something, a newfound strength that motherhood had given me, a type of strength that I had only seen in my own mother. And I realized that, yes, this is what it means to be a mother, showing up even when you're afraid. Then came my daughter, Isla, born in August 2021. Her birth was much less dramatic. But a few days after we brought her home, both Will and I got COVID for the first time. So yes, just imagine a pandemic, a newborn, a 16-month-old, and 2 very sick parents quarantined so nobody could help us. I learned a whole new meaning of the word exhausted, like most parents eventually do. While I am still a little exhausted, life has settled in some ways. I do still find myself searching, grappling with the feeling that sometimes I'm on the outside of my own story, looking in. I have so much to be grateful for. A husband who feels like home, 2 children who light up my world, and a life that on paper is everything I've ever wanted. But there are moments when I feel lost, as though I'm moving through the motions without truly living them. When I think back to being 5 years old, standing in that kindergarten classroom, I didn't understand what it meant to be different. I just knew that it made me feel small, like an outsider. But as I've reflected on the years since, I've learned that being different isn't a burden to carry, it's a gift. It is the thread that has woven through every chapter of my life, connecting a little girl who felt excluded, a teenager finding love across state lines, and a woman navigating marriage, motherhood, and everything in between. I have always faced the question, who am I now? And each time, I've discovered that identity is not about choosing one role over another, but finding strength in all of the pieces that make me whole. So now I find myself asking, who am I beyond the roles of a wife, mother, and daughter? I know there will certainly be more to my story, And while I don't know where it's going, I am learning to stand at the crossroads of life's chaos, feeling both lost and found at the same time.
It's January 2020, 1 week before opening weekend, the last scrimmage before our first game of the season. I'm in center field. Everything since I was 10 years old has led me to this moment. This was all part of the plan. 10 years of relentless effort, countless hours of grueling training, perfecting every move. This is the peak of everything I've worked for. The crack of the bat echoes across the indoor stadium, sharp and clear, bouncing off the metal rafters. With flawless instinct, my body reacts before my mind can catch up, a line drive coming straight for me. The world narrows to just me and the ball. My eyes zone in on its red seams, spinning through the artificial light. I dive. The impact is smooth, my body absorbing the fall with the ease of someone who's trained for this moment. My glove stretches out, and the ball smacks into the pocket with a satisfying thud. For a split second, there's silence. Then an eruption of cheers from my teammates. They rush towards me, screaming my name, patting my back. This should feel incredible. This is what I've worked so hard for. But it doesn't. It doesn't feel like it's supposed to. It feels as though I'm suddenly underwater, sinking. The cheers are muffled, as if they're coming from another world. My breathing is shallow, as my mind spins in a chaotic blur. And in that moment, with the game-winning catch in my glove, I know I can't do this anymore. I've made my decision. 5 years earlier, I find myself sitting in the car with my parents outside my future high school. The air was thick with expectation as we went over the talk. Not that talk. The talk about planning my future. Will it be military, trades, or college? Then the phone rang, cutting through the tension. It was the call we had been waiting for. My dad's face lit up as we spoke to the coach of the A-level travel softball team. They wanted me. Me! This wasn't just a team, it was the team. This wasn't just an opportunity, this was the plan. The path to a college scholarship, recognition, success. And yet here I was, 14 years old, being asked to commit to a future I didn't fully understand. I nodded, more out of expectation than enthusiasm. The plan was set. Join the elite team, get scouted, earn a scholarship, compete at the highest level. But what I didn't know then was that agreeing to the plan meant signing away parts of myself I hadn't even discovered yet. And so it began. Every weekend was a whirlwind of travel with my elite team, chasing recruitment opportunities, flying across the country, competing in tournament after tournament. My life became a constant balancing act. Intense training, endless schoolwork, and whatever scraps of sleep I could manage. Friendships fell away. Family gatherings were missed. It didn't matter. The plan demanded it. On the field, I was surrounded by girls who had already secured their futures. Some of them showed up to practice in gear from their chosen colleges at just 14 years old. Meanwhile, I was one of the last two players, still uncommitted, still waiting. I overheard parents whispering to mine asking, "Has anyone expressed interest in Jay yet?" Their daughters had their plans set. I began to wonder if I was falling behind. Doubt and questioning crept in for the first time. Was I really enough? Was I really as good as everyone said I was? Within a few months, I was on the phone with coaches, negotiating. "What degree are you pursuing?" one coach asked. I'm sweating on the other side of the phone line. What do I want to do for the rest of my life? I'm sorry, I don't even know how to drive yet. I felt paralyzed by the anxiety of choice. Which school, which degree? Illinois calls. The plan was falling into place, whether I was ready or not. By 16, I had the scholarship, but the pressure only grew. Practice was relentless, softball scorched at me, screams demanding I move faster. "You'd be faster if you lost weight," my coach said, sparking the start of my eating disorder. I reshaped myself, not for my health, but to look the part, to fit in, to fulfill the plan. Food became my enemy. I became numb to everything except training. I wore heavy makeup like my teammates, got more piercings, lost 30 pounds in 3 months. I was trying to maintain the image demanded of me. The weekend before homecoming, my boyfriend took me to a family event. He handed me a glass of water. Suddenly, I felt outside of my body. Paralyzed, roofied, and my virginity ripped away from me, my mind and body were powerless. Too embarrassed and scared to tell anyone, I kept it to myself. I told myself to stop thinking. All consciousness stopped that night. I refused to lose sight of the plan. I was so close. At 18, I'd been on campus for 6 months. College demanded I operate on autopilot, adhering to a strict student-athlete schedule to prepare our team for the 2020 season, all while establishing myself as the serious one. Lifting the corners of my mouth into a smile was harder than maxing out at 6 a.m. lift. Why? How could I be so blessed but still depressed? There was something wrong with me. I was selfish. I was wasting my talent by not enjoying this. The plan wasn't to think. The plan wasn't to feel. The plan was to play. I stood frozen in the middle of the field, game-winning ball in my hand. And after all these years, I realized a plan is nothing without purpose. And deep down, I knew I did not want the purpose that was designed for me. With the crack of that bat, I decided to put an end to the plan. I took a hot shower, swallowed an entire bottle of Tylenol, drank vodka, and chased it with liquid melatonin. My last meal was one final snowstorm from Darling's Custard Cup. I was convinced I could not ask for help. I couldn't say the words, "I am not okay." It wasn't that simple. I was so exhausted, I was willing to take that risk of not waking up. Rest, sleep, peace. That's all I wanted. The next few months, I found myself in and out of the dungeon of residential rehab. I left more scared straight than truly healed, but I walked away with a new mark on my heart, one that only breaking the chains of fear could leave behind. While in rehab, I discovered the power of connection. I bonded with other patients in ways many of them said they'd never experienced before in behavioral health. We connected through art, chess, tattoos, stories, and a shared desire for abundance and balance in our minds and spirits. For the first time, I understood the undeniable importance of community, connection, and collaboration. Without these, survival feels impossible. Many of us have felt isolated, even in the presence of others, because we had abandoned ourselves. I realized that without self-awareness, I can't truly connect with life. And so I got to work on myself and on my new plan. A plan to build wealth with wellness across all dimensions of the human experience. And you know, there's irony in how life unfolds. Without the pain of that suicide attempt, without being forced to confront my own mental health journey, I wouldn't have discovered my purpose. The COVID-19 pandemic, with all of its chaos, offered me the gift of pause. A chance to think and feel deeply for the first time in years. It was painfully liberating. And funny how things work. Just a few months ago, I graduated with my master's degree in social work. I'm now immersed in a career as a counselor while building a business that empowers others to thrive through multidimensional wellness. I choose to live a plan without constraints, no limits on achievements, no rigid expectations, no status-driven ambitions. Instead, I embrace a plan that recognizes the beauty in life's toughest moments and biggest disappointments. It's guided me as a therapist in helping others design their blueprint for the greatest project of a lifetime, themselves. My plans have left scars, but they've also given me a story to share. So here I stand with all of you, living my passionate purpose, all thanks to a failed plan.
It was gonna be the ultimate girls' trip. My bestie was having a destination wedding in Mexico, and I was the maid of honor. Now, my anxiety was elevated for a few reasons. This was my first trip post-second baby. We were just coming out of a pandemic, and last but certainly not least, I was juggling a delicate co-parenting situation. And if you know, you know. With that being said, we had been planning for a year, working with a travel agent to ensure a smooth trip. We had all of the details planned, direct flights to and Mexico, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So according to my plan, I would be home Thursday night, just in time to tuck my youngest daughter into bed. On our way there, things went off without a hitch, and myself and my two other besties had stayed the night in Chicago to catch an early flight. We had mimosas in the airport, some wine on the plane. We get to the resort, and it's beautiful. They greeted us with champagne, cold lavender towels. This is gonna be the best vacation. What could go wrong? Famous last words, right? So first we head to our room and drop our bags, ready to get to the pool. But first things first, I have to check out the room. Like, give it the old once over and see what we're working with. And as I'm doing so, I run right into the bed with my toe. Excruciating pain immediately follows the crack, and if you've ever had this happen, we all know that means broken toe. 5 minutes in and I'm already injured. And I know that there's nothing they can do for a broken toe, so the show must go on. And I put on my only sensible pair of shoes that I brought, and that was a pair of 2-inch platform Adidas slides. Super cute, zero practical. But I know what will fix this: tequila. The drinking commenced immediately, and I was able to numb the pain, and I was having so much fun. The next day, the bride and I were getting a couples massage, the first of 3. And the massage therapist was doing her thing, and then she decided to really zone in on my toes. And she did every single toe. I'm not sure if she was a toe gal, or if she just thought that that needed more work than the rest of my body, but that's when I remembered my toe. And I was too nervous to say anything, so I was trying to keep it chill and tranquil, but I wanted to crawl off the table and hide. But I just toughed it out. So the next day, the entire bridal party and guests were in attendance. The drinks were flowing, the vibes were vibing, and what do you know? The resort is bringing out snacks at the perfect time. And I knew I needed a little something to fill my tummy. Plus, that's like the first rule of drinking, you need to eat, right? And what better to do that with than ceviche in the hot sun? A couple hours passed, and let's be honest, I'm a fair-skinned gal and I can really only be in the sun for so long. So I decided to peel off and take a little snooze. And I'm not entirely sure if it was the sun, the drinks, or the ceviche. But when I woke up from my nap, I was violently ill for the next 12 hours. Let's just say no more ceviche for me, ever. The following day is the dinner rehearsal, and my tummy's still a little on the fritz, but I'm nursing it with a little Sauvignon Blanc, as one would under those circumstances. We're all chatting and excited for the big day tomorrow, and then I overheard the minister say that his flight was canceled. And I'm a professional eavesdropper. So my ears perk up, and I said, "Oh, well, what flight was that?" And he said, "To Chicago on Thursday." That just so happened to be the flight that I was on. So now I immediately hop on my phone, check in my email, and lo and behold, canceled. Now the airlines did move us to another flight, but with a connection in Charlotte. And there was only an hour and 20 minutes to make it through customs and security. And that really did not seem like enough time to me. Plus, if I wanted a connection, I would have had the travel agent book a connection for me. So now I'm anxious. And everyone's saying, "Oh, Charlotte's a small airport, you'll be fine, don't worry." And do you think that stopped me from worrying? No. So I reach out to the travel agent, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm expecting her to make miracles happen. And she says the same thing. "Oh, it's a small airport, I'm sure you'll be fine. Also, there are no flights I can move you to." Okay. So I just try and enjoy the rest of the trip, watching my bestie get married, hanging out with girlfriends, a catamaran excursion, I read a book, all the good stuff. But by the end of the trip, the sun was really starting to get to me, and even though I literally researched the best sunscreen, I wore huge hats for my delicate skin, I did have a bit of a heat rash and an enormous, fuggly cold sore right on my lip. Add my broken toe, my bubble guts onto that, and I was a hot-ass mess. The wedding was so beautiful, and I wish that I was here to tell you that this was the end of my story and everything always works out exactly how you plan. But we know that that's not the way the world works. On our final day, myself and my 2 other girlfriends who I'm traveling with board the shuttle to the airport, and I get a ping notification. Flight has been delayed. So I'm on edge. And then I get another ping. A second notification that our flight has been delayed. So we went from having an hour and 20-minute layover to having 40 minutes. Oh no. So I do what every mature woman does, and I cry about it. Because sometimes you do need to cry a little first. And there was no way that I was gonna get home in time to tuck my baby in. So at the gate, I told the American Airlines lady all the things. I'm crying at the counter. I'm worried I'm not gonna make it in time. Like, I just need to get home. Is there another flight? So she's typing away, and she says, look, there are 30 of you making this connection. They are not gonna leave 30 of you behind. They'll hold the plane, it'll be fine. So, I wipe my tears. And I mean, if she says we're gonna be fine, we're gonna be fine. So I'm gonna trust her, and I'm gonna go have a few drinks. The flight takes off from Charlotte, and they make an announcement on the plane asking everyone who's not on a tight time schedule to please sit back and let the passengers who are off first. And obviously no one does that, because that is not what people do. But we make it through super packed lines at customs and make it through security, and we have 15 minutes to get to the gate. And remember, I have a broken toe, and I'm wearing my 2-inch platform Adidas slides. And they are hard to walk in general, but very hard to walk fast. So I'm like doing this leg thing so I can really get to my gate, because you really need to curl your toes on slides to walk fast. But I went as fast as I could. And good news was we were close to the gate, and we make it to the gate with 11 minutes to spare. So I'm like, oh, we did it. Or so I think. Until the American Airlines lady says, gate's closed. You have got to be kidding me. Their only advice was to hop into the American Airlines customer service line, and they would help us. So we waited for over an hour for them to tell us that there were no more flights to Chicago for 2 days, but they could put us on standby for the last flight of the night. There were 3 of us traveling, and they said you need to be prepared to split up because there's only 2 seats available. But what they didn't mention was that there were 30 of us on standby. No one had made the flight. So the only way I see it is to make it home to see my daughter, rent a car, drive from Charlotte to Champaign. Settles it. So we go downstairs, and I walk up to the first car rental place, and I said, I want to rent a car. And he said, real smug, we don't have any cars. Okay. So then I step over to the other lady, and I was like, I want to rent a car. And she's like, okay, but you need to bring the car back. Bring the car back where? She's like, here. I said, to Charlotte, North Carolina? I was like, that defeats the entire purpose of renting this car. And she's like, well, if there's a car rental shortage, and we're not allowing for any one-way rentals. So we step away, and I'm feeling a little Catherine O'Hara Home Alone. I have no jewelry, no Palm Pilot, no sweet elderly couple to swap flights with. Hell, I'd have taken the polka band in the U-Haul. I'd even hop on the clarinet. But that wasn't an option either. And I just really, really wanted to get home to my baby, and I'm determined to make it happen. So I review my available assets. I have huge tenacity, good credit, and 100% success rate of figuring things out. I got a plan. So I turn to my friends and I say, I'm gonna buy a car. They said, you're gonna buy a car? And I said, yep. If I can't rent a car, I'm buying one. And I'm driving us home, and then I'm selling it. I said, you know, I'm gonna call a dealership right now. I'm gonna tell them we're on the way. I'm gonna tell them I'm gonna purchase one right now, and I'm selling it when I get back to Illinois. So I hop on Google as we're catching an Uber and heading to the only dealership that's still open. I tell them my whole story and my plan, buying, selling when I get back. But the real question is, will you please stay open for me so I can make it happen? And after a moment of awkward silence, he says, okay, sure. And I've bought my fair share of cars. And I know that it doesn't take 5 staff members to make it happen. But apparently they wanted to see the show. They run my credit and I'm good to go, and they explain to me that in order for this to work, they really need to sell me a car that they have the title to. That way a newly purchased car can go out of state, and I can just get on the road. So they told me they had the car all ready for me. And I walked out to a 2017 silver Jaguar XF. I was expecting a Ford Focus or maybe a Fusion, but a Jaguar. So I start laughing and I ask, are they serious? And they said, yeah, this is gonna be your best bet for resale, and asked if I wanted a test drive, and I said, not really. I mean, I just want to get on the road, you know? And he said, well, you better take it for a spin first. Okay. So it took about 2 hours to finalize the deal. And as the time's passing, I'm just getting more and more emotional about how I just need to get home to my baby, which at this point, I'm pretty sure they were tired of me crying all over the dealership. And so they finally handed me the keys and I thanked him for making this happen, and then I was off. We hit the road at about 9 p.m., drove through the night, just white knuckling it the whole way, caffeine and anxiety making it happen, and I blew through every single toll between Charlotte and Champaign. But the car wasn't registered in my name yet. So that was the silver lining to that. I didn't have to pay any tolls. And when I rushed into my house at 11 a.m. on Friday morning, sleepless, sunburnt, a broken toe, a fugly cold sore, a new-to-me Jag in the drive, to embrace my sweet baby Goo-Goo, expecting a huge reaction because she misted me so much, I got nothing. She literally did not care at all. She was tired and ready for a nap, and let's face it, so was I. When we woke up from our nap, I got started on the second leg of my plan, and that was contacting Carvana to get my beautiful Jag on the market before my first payment. And to answer some questions, I did sell it. I did lose a little bit of money, but when it was all said and done, it wasn't much more than if I had to wait 2 days to get a new flight, rent a car, pay for all the gas, all the tolls. So I considered it a win. And a fun fact is my luggage did in fact make it on the flight, which was odd considering the gate was closed when we got there. Fast forward a month later, one of my high school besties brought up the idea of planning a girls' trip. And one of them suggested Mexico. And I had a flashback, and then I immediately texted no. I do want to sign off by saying that everyone always says things will get done somehow, don't worry, they'll get done somehow. But truth be told, women are always the somehow. And I personally think that Tina Fey said it best, you know who gets shit done? Bitches get shit done. And that is a hill I'll die on.
I was born in a small town, and I lived in a small town. I like you guys. Until I was about 20 years old. You all know where I'm going with this. It's kind of like the John Cougar Mellencamp song. Kind of. When I remember myself in that small town, I see a community of 1,600 white people, surrounded by yellow and green cornfields. I hear the roar of loud trucks heading to the bright lights of Friday night football. And I feel the excitement of hundreds of smiling faces gathering at our annual summer carnival and parade. I vividly remembered the moments that shaped who I am today. The joyful ones, the scary ones, and the confusing ones. In this small town, everyone knows everyone. We would see familiar faces at church on Sundays. I would hear folks discussing that week's sermon, what is right, what is wrong, and what is allowed in the world. I would sometimes feel shame, embarrassment, and confusion as I tried to comprehend why some of my thoughts and feelings did not seem to align with the conversations I was hearing. Even at 5 years old, I had a lot of questions. On a crisp fall Saturday afternoon, I was watching college football with my dad. I felt comfortable and safe with my dad, even understood by him. So while we were watching football, I decided to blurt out, "Dad, what happens if girls like girls instead of boys?" My dad, after a few minutes of silence, turned to me, leaned in, and with big eyes and a soft voice, said, "They don't identify with those feelings, hon." I didn't understand what he meant. They don't identify with those feelings. These feelings felt like a big part of me. How do I not identify with me? I felt like maybe he didn't understand what I meant, or maybe for the first time, he didn't understand me. My stomach churned, my face went flush. I ran outside and jumped on my bike. I tried really hard to pedal away from my feelings, to pedal away from being seen. The only suspicion I had at this point of my gayness, it's okay to laugh, was the innocent crush I had on my female kindergarten teacher. And that was enough for me to know that something wasn't right about my feelings. I was too scared to dare ask anyone else about them. Like John Mellencamp says, it was at this point I learned to fear in a small town. I learned to fear myself and to fear others discovering my truth. So I decided to figure it out on my own. I thought about it, and I decided that what my dad meant when he said, "Don't identify with the feelings," is you pretend. You pretend like you don't have the feelings. So I became really good at pretending. At first, it was simply pretending that I was invisible. I worked really hard at being small and unnoticeable. As I started high school, I looked around for any sign that it was okay for girls to like girls. I found a few references on TV, but none in my small community. Everyone must be right. It's not okay to have these feelings. I decided that if I can't be the real me, then I can get really good at pretending. And I went all in. I grew my hair long. I accepted my mom's offers to buy me pastel shirts, dresses, and I decided to date boys. I quickly learned that humor deflects any real connection. And this defense mechanism worked. No one knew me at all. And yet, they liked this pretend Gina. By senior year, I became prom queen. I said all in. I had the lead in the school play, and most importantly, I would occasionally hear my parents bragging about me to family members and friends. I remember thinking, this must be what it means to fit in. But I always wondered, why do I feel so empty and sad inside? I had built myself a mirage of a life. On the outside, it looked acceptable to my family, to my friends, to my community members. Those I wanted and really needed approval from. I dated men, eventually married one. I graduated from the University of Illinois with a master's in social work. And I worked for many years as a school social worker. Every day, it was my job to encourage and guide kids to listen to their hearts and to follow their truth. And my stomach churned as I heard myself day after day after day, encouraging others to do the very thing I was running from. It wasn't a surprise that it all became too much. I was in way over my head. I ruined relationships. I couldn't keep up with my job. I was fired from a job. I was crashing and burning, and the weird thing is, I didn't fully know it. Fresh off a divorce, I decided the smartest thing I could do was move back to that small town. I was certain that would be the place where I would figure it all out. I would figure out what was wrong with me. I was still doing one-on-one therapy, listening and supporting others in their journeys of creating and being their true selves, and still going home filled with shame and disgust of living a double life. And then one day, something happened. I met a girl. And guess what? She was interested in me, and I was interested in her. And for the first time in my life, I was honest with her. Now, the joke is not lost on me here, guys. I was blown away that I had been all over the United States at this point, and this was happening here. In the first place, that I learned to really be afraid of myself and to try and run away from myself. And yet, there was another part of me that felt relieved and free for the very first time. But here was the thing. She wanted to live a life with me in the open. She would often say, "I will not be a secret because we are only as sick as our secrets." And she is right. At this point in life, I knew that the majority of people important to me believed being gay is a sin. They would disown me, and I was terrified. I really wanted to believe the words that John Mellencamp sang about the simplicities of living in a small town. Yeah, I can be myself here in this small town, and people let me be just what I want to be. But it's not always that simple. One night during the spring of 2006, I was out for a run in my small town. The streets were quiet, the air was cool, and smelled of fresh-cut grass. Halfway through my route, I found myself passing the empty football field where I spent so many Friday nights. It's a special place because my dad was the high school football coach there for 30 years. And the field now bears his name, Gary Johnson Field. I stopped, went inside, stood on the 50-yard line, and looked up at the big white crow's nest. I thought about him and me and this life. He was terminally sick. And for the first time ever, I could viscerally feel that this life really ends for all of us. I was sad and scared, knowing I was going to lose him And then it hit me. I was more scared that I would go through my entire life and never really be or know the true me. I have to go. I have to choose myself. I moved to Champaign with my partner, thinking the move would make everything better. People would accept me here, so naturally I will accept myself. But I had no idea how to be the real me. I spent years fighting those who couldn't accept me, hiding from those who actually did accept me, and doing a combination of hiding and fighting with those who did not really know me. I proceeded to make a mess of things. So much so that I ultimately ended up without a home, sleeping in my car near the cornfields on the edge of East Urbana. Ironically, I had the training to know that this was all a manifestation of my trauma, but I couldn't find my way out. Not alone. Fear was my constant companion. Often, it was my only companion. It was here in my darkest hour that I had to make some tough decisions. I thought about, what would I say to one of my clients if they were in this very same position? I asked myself that a lot. And suddenly the answer was clear. I had to be vulnerable, admit that I needed help, really let someone else in, lay it all out on the table. I started seeing a therapist every Wednesday at noon, and I shared all of my fears, my shame, my doubts, my lies. I gave every secret that I was conscious and aware of to David, Wednesday after Wednesday after Wednesday, for 8 years, and he gave me unconditional love. I also realized that if I was really going to heal and grow, I needed to take an active approach outside of that therapy room. So I read every book I could get my hands on about trauma and the nervous system, and I found the one thing that had the power to change everything. Find the good. Look through and feel all of the pain and the confusion and the suffering, and find the good. Find the good in people, in nature, in arts, in music, in sports. I opened a social media account. I named it Good Things and challenged myself to post 10 good things a day for 1 year. At first, I was surprised at how difficult it was to find good things to post. Yet, I loved the challenge, and it became a new framework for my thinking throughout every day. Soon I realized there are good things everywhere when you choose to look for them, even in the darkest moments. Today, I live in Urbana with my incredible wife, Lindsay, and we run a thriving mental health practice filled with many special, talented, and loving people. And every day as I pull out of our driveway, I can see that spot in the cornfield where I used to park my car to sleep when I was without a home. Every day I am reminded of two worlds. The one where I isolated myself, where I hid and fought the world, and the one I live in now, a life where I'm grateful to give and receive love with so many other people. Now, when I tell my team or people I work with to listen to their hearts and live their truth, I say it without feeling disgust or irony. I can say it because it was my only path to freedom, joy, and self-love.
I was a foster mom, and I adopted 3 medically complex children from foster care. And one of them had extensive respiratory therapy needs, so we spent a lot of time in the hospital. With that, I met a lot of different care providers, and the respiratory therapists were the ones that always seemed very, very happy to be doing their job. So I asked them, I was like, well, what do you do? And they're like, well, we're respiratory therapists. And I had not heard of that career path. So then as he was getting kind of more sick, I started looking at basically like, how can I care for him? And a lot of the things that I was doing, I realized that I could make a career out of that and help other people too. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 5 kids, so we didn't have the financial means to really pay for college, and so it made it a little bit easier. I didn't have to work. I'm able to focus on school, and I'm a straight A student. I've gotten A's in every single class this year. I had 15 years ago tried to come to Parkland, and I was young and didn't have a support system, so I failed out of almost every single class. Didn't even withdraw, completely failed out. So what that did was made me ineligible for grants, so I couldn't get any grants. I was on academic probation, so I couldn't get financial aid. A lot of the other scholarships available are GPA based, which I did not meet. The Women of Impact is not. So it was one of the few that I was eligible for. So this specific one gave me a specific chance to come back. You guys didn't look at what I had previously done. You took a chance, and you really just looked at what we do in the community, and I appreciate that very much because I do a lot in the community, and this was one of the few things that really helped get me back into college. And I hope that I made you proud. I pulled off straight A's raising 5 kids.
Welcome back. Wasn't that an incredible story? I think, if I am correct, that Miss Kelly Harvey is here in the audience tonight. Am I right? Kelly, are you with us? She's where? She's at the hospital work. Let's give it for Kelly, who's at the hospital working right now. I should have asked. Kelly was invited to be our guest tonight because of her amazing story that we wanted to share. But we want you guys to learn a little bit more about the Parkland Foundation and why we chose the Women of Impact program to be our nonprofit partner for this year's show. Obviously, we're here at Parkland, and our first time here at this theater. They have been incredible to work with. We're so grateful. But I'd like you to hear a little bit more from one of the members of our cast, Lesa Brandt with the Parkland Foundation, and the chair of the Women of Impact program, Heidi Esther.
Hey, Lesa.
Hi, Heidi. Good, how are you?
Don't you love being in an environment where women are supporting women?
Nothing makes me happier.
I think that Women of Impact is kind of like That's What She Said year-round.
You're right.
Lesa, can you tell us a little bit more about Women of Impact?
I would love to, Heidi. So Women of Impact is a scholarship program that meets women where they are. Just like Kelley, who came to Parkland, it didn't work out and she came back. She needed the Women of Impact to believe in her, and truly her scholarship was the deciding factor of her being able to come back here at Parkland. So what we do at Women of Impact is we bring women together because, like Miranda told us, bitches get shit done.
Bitches together get shit done.
So what better way to do that than to bring women together to raise money, $100 at a time, always more if you want. We have fun. Wine, drinks. Actually, Dish Passionate is going to cater our event this year. They're at the after party. We love Dish. We have wine, and we give you a glimpse of 25 women who are aspiring to achieve their goals and dreams here at Parkland. And we let you, the women who are attending this event, vote on who you think should receive the scholarships.
We make it as anonymous as possible.
Yeah, nobody gets their feelings hurt.
No,
So
we're
just to
all-
be clear for anyone who's highly sensitive out there,
Yes.
it's all good. We're safe.
And at the end of the night, we know who receives the scholarships. It's quick, it's efficient, it's so much fun, and it makes you feel incredible.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you know what this really reminds me of? A ripple effect. You know the ripple effect? We're helping these women. We try to give 10 scholarships a year. We've been given 11 our first 2 years, which is great. But you help one woman, and that woman helps her family. And that family helps the community. And pretty soon, we are all lifted up by these women, by supporting, coming together to support these women. And I would like to share some great news with all of you right now. I feel called to.
Tell us about it.
So, with each of your, thank you, Lesa. With each ticket sold, there is a small donation to the Women of Impact from That's What She Said. So you know what that makes each and every one of you? A woman, man, or person of impact. I told you we're inclusive, right? So, I think it's time, Lesa. It is time for you all to declare that you are a woman, man, or person of impact. So let's get on our feet. Come on, I know, it's always like, oh my God, I just sat down. Dreaming of the Sauvignon Blanc later, come on. Let's get up. All right, yeah. I want you to stand up like you are Superman, Superwoman, Captain Marvel. She's my favorite. Yeah, she's my woman. Well, not my woman, but you know, we all have exceptions, right? When we're married, we have those exceptions. Anyway, so I'm gonna say, I didn't plan that. So I'm gonna say, I'm a woman of impact. And then you're all gonna say whatever, I am a blank of impact. And then we're gonna feel it. We're gonna practice this one round, okay? I am a woman of impact.
I am a woman of impact.
Oh, that was much better. You guys, like, are you already on the sauce or like, what's going on here? Okay, we're gonna do it one more time because it feels good, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel good to feel that, to know that what you're doing is making a difference? I am a woman of impact.
I am a woman of impact.
All right, great, you have earned your seats. Women, men, and people of impact. Awesome. So now that we're all friends, and women, men, and people of impact, so how can we all continue this awesome feeling year-round by getting involved?
Heidi, I am so glad you asked. In your program, the best page in the whole thing
right there.
would
Boom.
be the Women of Impact
They
page
match my socks.
with a QR
Parkland
code to the Parkland College Women of Impact page. We want to invite you to join us this year on June 24th, right here, back at Parkland. $100 gets you in the door and helps you contribute to women like Kelley.
That is such a great invitation. I personally can't wait, right? It's great food, and so you meet great people, and you have great food, and you're home in time. It's still light out, so you can have soft close early, right? So stick to the schedule. It's all good. You make an impact. Check that box, right? But right now, we give 10 scholarships. Well, it's been 11. But our dream is to give 25 scholarships every year, fully funding one woman in that point in her life where she needs that support. Can you imagine? Yes, amen. Giving, really getting to that point where we are normalizing asking for help, right? That we are all made to be brilliant and to be supported, and not the or. So yes, please join us in this movement to support our community and normalize this support and make the difference in 25 women's lives.
Heidi, I have a question for you. So you want 25 scholarships. How much is each one?
$2,000.
$2,000. Well, we've got a little surprise for you. On your goal to getting to 25, we're going to start you with the first one. So here's a check for $2,000 from That's What She Said. Thanks to all of you.
To all of you.
And I got a little overzealous and ordered this a couple weeks ago, so it's actually close to 2 scholarships at this point. So I don't have the final number yet, but
Gonna
it's
make me
definitely
cry.
more than 2,000. So thank you guys for making this possible.
Thank
Seriously.
you so much.
And I do have one more surprise. And she's not here, but I think I'll share the surprise with you guys anyway. So I was at last year's Women of Impact event, and I was so touched by Kelly's story. For anyone who does not know, I serve as president of a small nonprofit organization called The Family Room that my friends and I started a few years ago because we recognized that there was a gap in services to support foster families here in Champaign County. And so for the past 6 years, we have been working tirelessly to raise money and gather supplies and support the agencies like DCFS and CYFS so that these kids, when they get placed into care, have everything that they need, and that these caseworkers can go and do their jobs with as much ease and comfort as possible. And so I asked my amazing board members at the Family Room, and we have a check for Kelly Harvey for $1,000 for her to continue her education.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, so.
Kelly wanted to be here tonight. She was planning on it, and she texted 30 minutes ago, and was like, I'm not gonna make it. She's at the hospital at her internship, and I said, girl, you're making us so proud. Keep taking care of everybody. So she sends her regrets.
So I'll have Lesa send her a text backstage and let her know the news, okay? All right, Lesa, yes.
Are we done here?
Well, you need to go get ready for Act 2, because you've got a story to share.
Well, we just want to do one more thing. Because you are so generous to everybody, we want to be generous to you. You are an amazing human being who truly inspires emotion to everyone you meet. And you have taken such good care of every woman who has ever been on this stage and beyond. And we just wanted to give you a little token of our appreciation and tell you how much we love you, and give you some things that after the show is over, you can just take a beat and take care of yourself just like you tell us all to take care of ourselves.
Wow.
So we love you and we thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. I'm gonna let you hold it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Now go get ready for Act 2. I'm serious. That was really a beautiful surprise. But I have some people I need to thank, because none of this would be possible without the generous support of our amazing sponsors. This is my favorite part, because I get the absolute honor of thanking everyone who made tonight possible. So please join me in welcoming and thanking our presenting sponsor, Sterling Wealth Management. Cannot do this without you. So Sharon Allen and your entire team, they believe in women, they believe in community, and this is proof of that. I'd like to say thank you to Carpet Weavers for designing our beautiful set one more time. Seriously, it's gorgeous. And thank you to our returning sponsors, Carl Health and CIBM Bank. Yeah, I'll just get it all. Here we go. We're going to thank Loft Beauty Co. for styling our lovely ladies tonight. Yes, we have some new amazing friends at Blueprint Motto and our friends at Up Close Printing. Thank you so very much. And did you guys all get your tissues tonight? Because thank you so much to our amazing sponsor, Elliott Counseling, for the tissues and so much more. We're so grateful. And a very special thank you to our after party sponsor, Commerce Bank. So you're all invited to stay after the show. Right next door, there's another theater, and tonight it's a party. And so please join us. Thank you to Commerce Bank for making that possible. This list goes on and on, ladies. You have your programs that showcase all of the incredible businesses that said yes to us this year to support That's What She Said. So please get to know these businesses. These are businesses that support women. And so if you love women like we do, please go out and support these amazing businesses in Champaign. Oh, and even though there are only 8 speakers sharing their stories with you all tonight, you may have noticed one extra member of the cast who is helping us share all the stories so that our show can be as inclusive as possible. So allow me to introduce to you our ASL interpreter, Miss Rose Panapinto. Seriously. Amazing. And we've also been running alongside That's What She Said, our teen empowerment program, That's What Teens Say. We're in our 8th year, and we're just so grateful to our presenting sponsor, the Rock Counseling Group, and all of the businesses who made our program possible in 2024. We're so excited to keep that program going. It's one of my absolute favorite things. So, are you guys ready for some more stories? Because let's get the show on the road. Without further ado, please welcome back to the stage your 2025 That's What She Said speakers.
I knew motherhood would change me, but I didn't think that losing the chance to become a mother would change me so much. Hi friends, thanks for being here and taking the time to listen to each of the ladies up here. I have been in your seat, in the audience of That's What She Said, and I am always amazed at what these women have been through and just in awe of the ladies who have stood on this stage and shared such vulnerable stories. It's not always easy being in the audience at That's What She Said. Listening to stories that can be really hard to hear. I know from experience how important it is to talk about all the things that you're not supposed to talk about. So you can connect with others who've been there and just know that you're never alone. Tonight, I'm going to talk about my experience with infant loss. This may be incredibly triggering for some of you here. So if you need to step out, have an ugly cry, or just mentally take yourself somewhere else, I get it, and I have been there. You're so good, girlfriend. But my story isn't just about what I lost, it's about what I gained along the way. Growing up, I always wanted to be a mom. Little Mrs. Pineapple, as I called myself, had big goals and a life plan, and I was determined to achieve everything I set my mind to and more. And it was all going to happen exactly how I planned it. That's how I approached pretty much everything. Focused on the goal, let nothing stand in my way or slow me down, and get it done. You want me to get it done faster? Tell me I can't do it. You can imagine how this carried over into my young professional life. I expected everyone to be as determined and goal-driven as myself, and I didn't believe in excuses, not for me or anyone who happened to work with me or for me. 2 years into my infertility journey and about 89 ruined plans later, I realized that things weren't always going to go my way, but I wasn't going to give up on the end goal, a baby. It was the holidays, so I was dressed to the nines in my homemade Christmas bow dress, and I'd heard one too many people tell me, oh, just relax, you'll get pregnant. So I was indulging in my newest self-prescribed medication, 3 Olives cherry vodka, and it seemed to be working pretty great. That night, I was due for the final injection of my cycle, and when my friend, who gave me all the injections, also self-medicated on 3 Olives, was prepping the needle, I convinced her to give me just a little extra follistim to ensure that I would have big, juicy follicles ready to release an egg. On Christmas morning, 2013, Santa brought me the brightest of all pink, "You're pregnant," on about 9 pregnancy tests. I was in shock. A few weeks later, at my first sonogram, we were told I was pregnant with triplets. We had won the literal infertility jackpot. I immediately connected with a few triplet moms who all assured me that the end of my pregnancy would include weeks of bed rest. So I wasted no time and went right to work. By the time I was 23 weeks pregnant, we had bought a van, completed the cutest elephant-themed nursery with 3 cribs, driven to Georgia to meet a triplet family and brought their incredible discontinued triple stroller that I absolutely had to have, and so much more. My type A personality was thriving, and through all of this, I was feeling incredible. On April 24th, I came home from work feeling particularly exhausted and started having some mild cramps. The next morning, I called my OB, the amazing Dr. McGregor, and she suggested that I swing by the hospital just to make sure that everything was okay. Cue the hysterics, erratic driving, and picture my van screeching up to the front door at Carl at warp speed. By the time I got to labor and delivery, I'd calmed down, but Dr. McGregor was in the clinic that day. So I was checked out by the on-call doc, who I had never met. She was super young and gorgeous. I was the size of a house and super emotional, and I got real judgy. I had an important meeting at noon. I was absolutely not going to miss that. I was ready to get in and out of that hospital so I could get to work. The doctor came back into my room, and with a look on her face that I will never forget. She sat down next to me, held my hand, and told me, "You are fully dilated, and there's nothing we can do." I said, "Okay. Sounds like we better get some undilation medication going, because I've got a meeting to get to at work at noon." I did not get it at all. She explained to me that there is no magical reverse dilation medication and that I would not be leaving this hospital until I delivered my babies. That could be days, weeks, or even months. All right. So the coming weekend was supposed to be my baby shower. My sweet sister-in-law got to make those terrible phone calls, which resulted in a literal parade of floral deliveries. We got, no joke, over 40 flower arrangements, which, given the circumstances, brought us more joy and laughter than you can imagine. We set up camp in room 1010, which was right next to the OR, and followed our medical plan, which was to hope for time, so my babies would have even a chance to survive outside the womb. Every day and even every hour that I stayed pregnant was a huge win. I barely moved. I couldn't even shower, just the occasional wipe down and so much Purell. One afternoon, as I was using the bedside commode, I quickly realized that something was happening, so I was rushed to delivery. It was an incredibly bittersweet moment as my first 2 babies, Lottie and Blaze, were born. Alive and tiny, but just not ready for this world. We could see on the sonogram how baby C, who'd been scrunched up near my rib cage, took the opportunity to just stretch out and get comfortable in the womb. The next day, my cervix completely closed up on its own, and we were able to put a cerclage in. We spent 4 hopeful days shuffling floral arrangements around the room and listening to my mom update us on every single detail and the entire history of the Bold and the Beautiful. Eventually, my body went into labor again, and after a very stressful few hours and lots of tears, my baby Lola was born still. I laid in the bed completely devastated, with no babies. My body had failed me. I was so weak and in shock at what had happened. My mom and my mother-in-law practically carried me to the bathroom to take my first real shower in what felt like months. I sat on the bench, water pouring on my head, and just cried. I had no choice but to accept help, even to take a shower. I was so defeated. Every plan I had set into motion had completely failed. And for the first time in my life, I was completely vulnerable. I had control of what felt like nothing. But something shifted in that moment. I had lost all of my babies, but I had not lost everything. It wasn't over. I had my uterus and all of my girl parts, which meant I could get pregnant again. I needed to focus on that and do everything in my power to go about things differently. I had to ask for help and accept that help when it was offered. I couldn't be that I can do it myself, my way or the highway, super driven and focused, but very lovely Lesa that I had always been. The Lesa before this tragic loss would have regrouped immediately, rewrote the plan with dates and color coding, made infertility appointments, gone back to work too soon, pretended like nothing had happened, all while hiding my emotions. Post-loss Lesa had to figure out how to survive one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time. I wasn't going to let this loss take any more from me or lead me down a road that I didn't want to be on. I knew that my babies wouldn't want that for me. As we left the hospital, I was pushed through the lobby in a wheelchair with no shoes on and wearing pants against my will, followed by 3 carts full of flower arrangements. It was quite the spectacle. Not caring a thing about what anyone thought, I announced loudly, "I still have a uterus!" Because in that moment, leaving the hospital with no babies, my intact uterus was the only thing that I could find to be positive for. The weeks after my loss were filled with lots of really hard moments, like when I called the breastfeeding clinic to figure out what to do when my milk came in, times 3, and I heard nothing but screaming babies in the background. Or when I had to go back to the hospital because of a high fever, and the person pushing my wheelchair to maternal fetal medicine asked, "How are your babies doing?" Or when my mom, my mother-in-law, and I decided to get tattoos in memory of the triplets. As I explained my idea for 3 cute tiny elephants to the tattoo artist, he said, "That's stupid." I realized I could have let it all get to me and bring me down even more. I could have gotten really angry, and that would have been justified because my babies died. But what I realized were the comments and actions from innocent people who were genuinely trying to help were the worst. There is no manual on what to do when a baby dies. Even if there was a manual on what to do when a baby dies, it would be different for every single person, and quite honestly, different for the same person depending on the day. One of my best friends said to me, "You can be bitter or you can be better. It's your choice." Of course, I'd heard this saying before, but it took on a whole new meaning and became my mantra as I navigated life after loss. Like when I would get phone calls from every single maternity store that I'd ever shopped at, and there were several, letting me know that they were having a sale. Or when the person at the crematory told me that he was going to give me a deal and only charge me for 1 baby. I had to make a choice. I could bite this innocent person's head off and be really awful to them just for doing their job and trying to help. Or I could choose compassion. I found myself having more compassion in all situations. And what I realized was just as much as these innocent people had no clue what I was going through or how I was feeling, the same applied for everyone else in the world. I had no clue what they might be dealing with. Like when a colleague would call in sick to work, I used to get so annoyed because we had work to do. But today, I'm empathetic to the situation because that person could be dealing with something and need some time for whatever reason that I don't know a thing about. I certainly avoid asking the dreaded question, "How are you?" Because I know all too well the feeling of your legs turning to jello when asked that at the wrong time. How am I? My baby's died. There is a strong chance it is taking everything I have just to breathe and not have a meltdown. But I'm going to tell you that I'm good because that's what I'm supposed to say. Now, Anybody who's experienced my driving knows that it has a lot to be desired. However, after my loss, I find myself to be much more patient on the road. When someone starts riding my tail, instead of brake checking them, I assume that they are having a medical emergency and trying to get to the hospital. Just like I was that morning, and I politely get out of their way. It's not always easy to choose to be kind and empathetic and compassionate. For years, I'd see pregnant women and babies out in public, and I would just scowl. Now, luckily, triplet sightings are incredibly rare, but you cannot even imagine how many things come in threes or involve triplets. When I think back over the years, it was on my hardest days that my heart found the most healing. And over time, that healing has evolved into happiness and gratitude. I am so lucky to share today that I have two amazing living children and balanced co-parenting with their dad. Yeah, we divorced, but losing the triplets did bring us closer together for a little bit. Now, my divorce story's pretty good. You're gonna need some cocktails, so see me at the after party. My heart is so full today, and I know without a doubt that I am a better person and a better mom because of my loss. And that incredibly handsome silver fox in the audience, hands off, ladies, he's mine. Soon after I physically recovered, I reached out to Carl Philanthropy because I desperately wanted a bench to honor my babies. They were not going to a cemetery because babies don't belong there. As it turned out, Carl was in the process of building an infant memorial garden with 2 benches. I raised the funds and was able to celebrate Lottie, Blaze, and Lola's first birthday sitting on our bench just days before I delivered my sweet Hudson. 2 years later, that young, gorgeous, on-call doctor who gave me the worst news of my life delivered my last baby via scheduled C-section. As I was laying on the delivery table, I told her that I was naming my baby after her. And within minutes, my precious Cooper girl came into the world. I often think of the families who sit on our bench and visit the garden. I'll never meet them, and I'll never know what they're going through. But I can hope that in their saddest moments, they can find something to be grateful and positive for, like a uterus.
From age 17 to 70, I was married to my dear sweet Roger. He was enlisting, and so we got married before he left, and I stayed in our small town of Centralia to finish high school. Well, growing up in a strict religious household, this was the most innocent and traditional way to begin my adult life. Of course, I hid it from my parents when I started flirting at 8th grade. I was a cheerleader, and I had my eye on the star basketball player. But we were not allowed to date. We were not allowed to do many things. No music, no dancing, not even playing cards. It was our parents' belief that playing cards was a gateway to gambling. So right after high school, I was put on my very first plane ride to Southern California to be with Roger, who was in the Army. We spent a few months together in our apartment in Santa Barbara, and then his company was activated and sent to Fort Lewis, Washington. He was packed to go, and I was heading back to Illinois to wait for him. We enjoyed one last night together, and I remember thinking Roger was in quite good form. before we realized we were experiencing our first earthquake. After driving across the country with some family friends and settling back home, I found out I was expecting our first child. I gave credit to that earthquake. I started working right away to save money for our new home and so Roger could go back to school. And when he returned, we found him a job teaching at a school in Danville with a salary of $3,200 a year. Remember, that was 1954, and we rented a 3-bedroom home for our family for a whopping $20 a month. We welcomed our children, Roger, Douglas, Kevin, and Angela. And in order to stay home with my kids and make ends meet, I started watching other children in my home. And I loved it. It was no surprise I found my life's work as a preschool teacher. My children were my pride and joy, and it was truly wonderful watching them each grow to find their true passions in life. Now, I remember vividly in June of 1987, we were sitting in a restaurant having dinner, and we were so very happy. And we raised our glass to celebrate how happy we were. Roger Douglas had a great job in New York City after spending 7 years as a roadie with REO Speedwagon Band. And our dear Angela was studying to be a music teacher and expecting our first grandchild. Well, Kevin's musical talent took him all the way to Broadway. He starred in shows like Cats, he was Old Deuteronomy, My Fair Lady, and a workshop Sunday in the Park with George. We enjoyed many trips to New York to see Kevin perform, and it was like a dream come true. He had just taken over the role of Jean Valjean in Les Mis, and we had gone out to see him Father's Day weekend. But at the high point of his career, at the age of 31, he died suddenly from a bad reaction to cocaine. And this became the most devastating period of my time. Nothing can prepare you for losing a child. I leaned on my other 2 children and my husband, Roger, and he gave me the strength to keep going. So in Kevin's honor, we started a scholarship program for students at Urbana High School who wanted to study theater and music. We preached about the dangers of drug use, and we shared Kevin's story to inspire young people to just say no. We tried to use our tragedy to make a difference in our community. I did eventually retire from teaching. Then I went back. Then I retired again and went back again. Now I've retired from teaching preschool 5 separate times. And even though I just turned 90 years old a few months ago, I still teach a regular class through the Urbana Park District to children called Cooking Up a Story. We read stories and cook recipes related to the stories, and the children and I have a blast. My dear Roger passed away in 2004, and I was alone for the first time in my adult life. It was lonely, and I found myself throwing an occasional pity party. But I found ways to fill my time with joy, My granddaughter would bring over her university friends on Sunday nights to do their laundry. And I would cook dinner, and it became a weekly tradition with a house full of music and laughter and theater games. So fun. And after I'd been widowed for 10 years, my daughter tried to convince me to get back out there. What? Get back out where? I was 80 years old. Until one night, she sort of ambushed me. She called me and told me to meet her at Cranard Uncorked. And even though I was tired from a long day of teaching, I somehow managed to put on my shoes to go, and she sneakily introduced me to a gentleman. Well, I sort of liked him. He was sweet on me, so we gave it a go. And within a month, he proposed. And within 3 months, we had a commitment ceremony. Okay, listen, when you're my age, you don't have time to mess around. Well, maybe we did move a little too fast, because I missed some signs along the way, and we've decided to part as friends. And now you can find me most days in my kitchen baking famous Mrs. Marcum's mini muffins, or volunteering at our thrift shop, Twice is Nice. It's associated with my church. We raise money for local community organizations. And every summer I travel to Wisconsin, where I get to teach my Cooking Up a Story class to children where my daughter runs community programming. I don't see myself slowing down anytime soon. The kids keep me young, and I just love working at our thrift store. And as for going on any more dates, I'm only 90, so I'm keeping my options open. Keeping on, burn out rather than rust out.
I've always lived in a large body. There's not a moment that I don't remember being tall and thick. But when I was younger, I was super self-conscious of my size. So much that I was constantly aware of how people saw me. So I wore lots of layers and big hoodies so that I could hide behind them. And I'd go as far as positioning myself in my desk at school to look as small as possible to the kids sitting behind me. I'd even walk down the hall super quick to avoid being seen between classes. I'd be sweaty and out of breath at the start of each class. And at parties, I'd try to be the first one to crack the fat jokes so no one else could hurt me with their words. The world was teaching me to hate my body, and I showed up to every lesson. Don't even get me started about clothes shopping. I could never even shop in the children's section because the pants were always way too short or way too tight in the waist. At 8 years old, I dreaded going shopping for new clothes because while other girls went to Aeropostale and Justice, my mom took me to Fashion Bug. Anybody remember Fashion Bug? Fashion Bug is where my mom got all of her clothing. Well, and she looked great in Fashion Bug clothing, but not on me, as an 8-year-old. I mean, come on. I was not cute at all. I was so afraid for any of my friends to find out that I shopped at Fashion Bug. Thank God they didn't, but my teachers sure did. There was nothing worse than having on the same outfit as a teacher. Thanks, Fashion Bug. To say the least, shopping has never been fun for me. It felt like work to find clothing that I liked. And many shopping trips ended in disappointment and feeling even more insecure in my body. But by the time I was in college, a lot had changed in the relationship that I had with my body. I started to own my body. I figured out that the world we lived in created the lens through which I was taught to view my body. So I started to fight back. I fell in love with my body. She deserved to be seen out in public. So I would take my body to yoga class, deepening the love that I had for this vessel. The newfound love that I had for myself led me to tear off the extra layers that I hid behind. I was working towards feeling better in my own skin. And when I looked in the mirror, I actually liked what I saw. The girl I saw was fat, with a P, pretty, hot, and thick. But shopping was still a challenge. But this time, it was because I was on a college girl's budget. So it was a serious splurge when my friends and I would go shopping at thrift stores. Now, thrift shopping is its own challenge. It's already hard enough to find new plus-size clothing, but secondhand might be easier to find a needle in a haystack. So while my friends would dig through rows and rows of cool secondhand clothing, I would tend to wander through the housewares, maybe make it over to the men's section, find me a chunky sweater. But on this particular day, we were on a mission to find funky and cool clothing to wear to the clubs that weekend. So I was feeling a little more daring than usual. Women's section, here I come. As I searched the rack, something caught my eye. I saw this silky, bright purple vintage-looking jacket, and I thought to myself, it was beautiful. I loved it. It called out to me. And I said to myself, I need that jacket. But as soon as that thought came and went, so did another one. Something that cute couldn't possibly be my size. I was prepared to be disappointed. But as I looked at the tag, I'm sure everyone in the store could hear me shriek, it's my size! I hurried and put it on, and it fit even better than I could ever imagine. This moment felt magical. Buying that jacket redeemed my faith that big girls can have cute things. A few months later, I was on my way to my first music festival with my girlfriend. I was so pumped because at this time, I felt better than ever in my body. And I wanted to sing and dance and create more memories, feeling happy and free in my big, beautiful body. So I packed all of my favorite clothing items and accessories that made me feel like a sexy badass, including, of course, the jacket. Honestly, it was going to be the staple of my entire weekend. I could not wait to wear the jacket with all of the bright lights and funky music and take Instagram-worthy photos. When we arrived at the festival, we had to make several trips to unpack the car to the campsite in the dark. Later, as we're getting ready to change into fresh clothes for the night, I noticed that my luggage with all of my clothing and toiletries was missing. I asked all the campsites around me if they'd seen any luggage on the trail. I even checked in with Lost and Found. We gave up looking that night. Maybe our luck will be better in the morning. The next day came, still no luggage. My favorite artist was playing that day, so I was totally happy with being a hippie for the day and stinking just a little. It started to rain. I mean, a heavy downpour. But the show went on. We started to dance in the rain. The show went on and we enjoyed the entire day, filled with live music and dancing in the rain. By the time we walked up that hill to our campsite, I looked like a wet dog who just got done playing in the mud. We got back to our tent and even it was flooded. So we made a plan to go to Walmart in the morning. When we arrived at Walmart, it was like the place had been ransacked. There was absolutely no cute, funky clothing. The only thing that was available in my size was black leggings, black tank tops, And that's just not my style. I accepted my fate at this point and reminded myself of the ones who came before me at Woodstock 69. The weekend went on, and although the rain persisted, I danced. I danced to and from stages with strangers and all through the night. And I met some of the nicest people who made me forget all about my lost luggage. The person I came with, the love of my life, looked at me as though I was the brightest and most beautiful in the crowd. I felt amazing. The memories created that weekend will never be about what I wore, but how I felt. When we were packing our things to go home, I stepped out into the trail and I saw this bright, purple, vintage-looking, wait, is that my jacket? I was, at that moment, the clouds parted, the sun shined bright, and I could hear a choir of angels singing as I ran up to the woman wearing my jacket and screamed, "Ma'am, may I ask you where you got that jacket? Because I lost my luggage this weekend and I had a jacket that looks just like that. Please tell me you found it." She kind of looked at me like, "Who the hell are you?" She confirmed that her and her friends had found my luggage that weekend. And instead of looking for the rightful owner, they had their way with my stuff. She told me to follow her to the car, but before she could make it 2 steps further, I was like, "Hold up, can I get my jacket?" I practically ripped it off of her. No malice. I was just excited that I had this jacket back in my life. We arrived at her car, and her friend dropped my luggage in front of me. I looked down, and there was a bra, some underwear, and now that I think of it, not even all of my underwear. They made some excuse that the clothing was all mixed up in all of their luggage, so we exchanged contact information, and she promised me she would collect all of my items and mail them back to me. 5 years later, I have never received those items in the mail, but I do have my jacket. This is the real jacket. I am so happy this jacket found me again, because this jacket found me at a time where it felt impossible to love my body. It found me at a time when I was just beginning to find my style. I don't think about any of the other items that I lost that weekend, but I do think about the jacket and how it made me feel, and how it made me feel without it. I realized that I deserve the best things in life. I deserve to feel good in what I wear, no matter what I'm wearing. I deserve to take up space. And without the jacket, I learned to dance in the rain, wearing all black, with chunky hiking shoes, feeling not a care in the world for how others perceived me. I realized I am bright, funky, and beautiful, even without it. The jacket brought me confidence when I needed it most, but more importantly, I discovered my own beauty and the power that was within me all along. I just had to be brave enough to let it shine.
There are experiences from my childhood that I didn't realize in the moment how much they were shaping me into the person that I am today. At 11 years old, I moved from a small farm to the great metropolis of Muhammad. It was sheltered and safe on this farm. I had so much fun, and it was kind of weirdly blissful, just like wandering around for hours, playing. Now, my father is the only child to the most amazing grandparents anyone could have been blessed with. Grandpa was funny and calm, and he loved to give me dollar bills when he said goodbye. Grandma was beautiful inside and out, and she was fiercely competitive, especially at canasta or any other game. She was adventurous and funny and kind, and she had a way of doing something for you that was just for you, that let you know that she saw you. So my heart always felt so filled with love from them that naturally being with them was my favorite place on earth. Now, when my grandfather had a series of small strokes, we had to move closer to where they lived in Urbana, Illinois, to aid in their care. Now, this move to Muhammad, it actually hadn't gone that well for me. You see, I was angry at my parents for years for it. And that not going well, I was starting 6th grade. I had a weird haircut. It was spiked like a boy, okay? The school was huge in comparison to where I had been going. I had begun to develop in a rather accelerated manner, so making me a little chubby too. The kids weren't that nice. Joke's on them, I'm still chubby. And one popular girl who will not be named was the bane of my existence. My dad had started working out of town right then. My mom started working out of the house right then. And, well, big brothers, if you have one, you know how they can be. Don't feel too bad for me. There were saving graces. One of them was a lovely family that we met at church, and I had started to babysit for them. And I liked being there. It was fun. I felt good doing a good job and helping. I got money. And much like on the farm, I got to play for hours. It's true. Another saving grace was that, of course, I was closer to Grandma and Grandpa Lasater. And now, this meant I could spend more time with them and at their house, where I pretty much got to do whatever I wanted, right? And I could watch TV. We didn't have one. They even had cable, right? So mostly, though, I felt safe and welcomed there, like I could just be myself. Now, in addition to being at their house, we now also went to the nursing home where my grandfather was staying. I was familiar with things other than perfect bodies already as a kid. My mother's hand and leg are deformed. Ralph, the piano player at the church back by the farm, was missing a few fingers. Another grandma's brother, Paul, was deaf. And my goodness, we even had a 3-legged dog back on that farm for a while. Okay, so now with going up to the nursing home, Grandpa was unable to walk from those strokes. He had difficulty with his speech, if he could get it out at all. He had a hand that was kind of closed up and stayed that way. And going up to this nursing home was an eye-opening experience for me. The smells, I mean, they were always present, right? Except for on Grandpa. And the sounds that you hear, and the sights of people being cared for when they cannot care for themselves. Now, I was always happy to see Grandpa, and I could always tell he was happy to see me. Those sounds, he had one he would make when I'd come in. Right? So it warmed my heart, right? It's like going for that hug, because I knew he was happy to see me, maybe a little nervous, but it also made me giggle. And there was always something to do for Grandpa, whether it was polishing his glasses so they weren't smudged, helping to shave him with the electric shaver. And hey, sometimes I'd act like I was hot stuff and I'd cut the few hairs he had. Or maybe I would push him down to the dining hall and help there for lunch or dinner. Now, I thought that these were just the things that needed to be done in order to see my grandparents. And it was more than that, though. These moments were teaching me about giving the best care and about sitting in silence with someone. Now, there were things that Grandma could not do, and she would leave that to the staff, things that require Grandpa to be lifted, like transferring him to be bathed or changed, dressed. Now, I have always been blessed. One could say cursed. We're gonna say blessed, right? With that development of being rather stout in nature. So, one day we figured out that I could lift and transfer Grandpa myself, right? I mean, my life on the farm had prepared me for this moment. I knew I was strong and steady and could do it. Now, this opened up a world of freedom for us. We could take Grandpa on car rides, one of his favorite things in the whole wide world. These car rides usually involved a milkshake for everyone, a lesson on the map of the town, and a tour of the cemeteries to see where my family was buried. I love those rides. Well, anyway, one afternoon I'm visiting Grandma and Grandpa, and Grandma realizes that Grandpa has had a movement, an accident, right? I could see her starting to fret, though. And I knew, and she knew, that the CNAs would come eventually, but Grandma was worried about Grandpa getting sores, and her level of clean always far surpassed that of the staff. Now, I didn't like seeing her this way, and I wasn't exactly sure what to do with my 12-year-old self or how to help, but I knew I was happy to help. So we figured it out. And all I really had to do was to help Grandpa get rolled over and hold him up while Grandma took care of things back there. Well, as Grandpa rolls back over, the sheet moves, and I get a glimpse of all of the things. Now, I was really shocked. I remember being really shocked, right? Because I didn't even know you could get gray hair down there. Now, Grandma must have seen the look on my face, right? Because she says, "Laura Catherine, everybody has a body, and everybody deserves to be clean and have dignity. Yep. This is no different than those diapers you change when you're babysitting." Wow. Who knew that this was the moment preparing me to see so many bodies? That stuck with me, those words. Everybody has a body. By the time I was 20, both of my grandparents had passed away. Grandpa was in that nursing home for 8 years. And we knew that he had the best care because of Grandma's vigilance and me. Well, soon after that, their passing, I went to massage therapy school. Now, while other people in the school had issues with underarms, toes, body hair, you name it, they had issues. But I was an old hand at all this already. I'd been seeing these things for ages. And maybe it was because of the time that I spent caring for Grandpa in the nursing home, but I became very good at seeing people in situations of slight distress and knowing how to hop in and help and how to read nonverbal cues. It's probably no surprise that these moments became vital in my career path of massage therapy. And looking back, all of those experiences were preparing me to step into part of my purpose in life, to put my hands on people's body and help them heal. Bodies change, for sure. Sometimes they deceive you and fail you. Sometimes they make you feel really strong and powerful. And my 40-something body, pushing 50, is nowhere close to that 12-year-old body. And from what I witnessed in that nursing home, you see, there's a whole lot of more changes ahead for all of us. It's true. And I have loved learning about how body work can ease pain, reduce stress, heal, and keep our bodies functioning so much better for longer. And it seems so simple. But when you realize that we each have one body, and only one, and you need to live in that body your whole life, you want to take good care of that body. So now, I approach each client with the utmost respect and care to maintain modesty, and you would be hard-pressed to find somebody better than me at draping a body with a sheet during a massage. And because of those words that my grandma said, people hear me say them often in my practice. Everybody has a body. I know I'll never be out of work. Gray hairs no longer alarm me. I've seen it all.
There's always gonna be someone trying to tear you down. mocking you for your mistakes. Oh, there's always gonna be someone messing your head around, watching you to see you break. So don't you let them call you out, brush away the shame and doubt. Remember what you're all about, and then show them who you are. Show them that you're strong. Show them that you know where you belong. Open up their eyes, force them all to see. Let them know you are and you'll always be unbreakable. Less. Let them talk, you know your heart. Oh, there's always gonna be someone calling you second best. Shut them down, don't fall apart. No, don't you let them in your head. Doesn't matter what they say.